Halo semuanya, selamat datang di Vampire Chats Championing Women Empowerment. Perkenalkan, nama aku Yorin, aku salah satu co-founder Vampire, and it is an honor for me to be your host today. I'm so excited for this event. I hope you all are too. This is a special event, di mana kita udah mengundang guest speaker yang keren-keren banget nih untuk sharing pengalamannya di Women Empowerment. Kita ada speaker-speaker internasional dan juga speaker di Indonesia yang punya banyak banget insight nih yang bisa di-share untuk teman-teman di sini supaya kita bisa belajar gimana sih how can we empower other women, how do we empower ourselves, how can we create the future vampires in Indonesia. Nah, sebelum kita masuk ke sesi yang pertama, untuk teman-teman yang udah join di sini, ayo make sure dulu ini koneksi kalian aman dan tidak terkendala jaringan agar bisa mengikuti dari awal sampai akhir dengan baik dan bisa lebih fokus selama event berlangsung. Untuk teman-teman yang baru join, kita mau kenalan nih. Ayo silakan tulis nama kalian di chat box. Where are you from? Dari mana kalian dengar Vampire? So that we can also get to know each other. Tadi dari aku ngelihat attendees, ada beberapa orang yang join ulang dari acara-acara sebelumnya. For all of you, welcome back to another Vampire event. We are so excited to have you here. Jadi, as you can see dari presentation PowerPoint di sini, di event hari ini kita ada kedatangan guest speaker yang keren-keren banget dan beneran ternama. Yang pertama, di sesi pertama kita ada Alana Karen, author, speaker, dan director of search platforms at Google. Dia udah bekerja di Google selama 20 tahun dan bukan cuma kerja di Google 20 tahun, dia juga udah membuat buku namanya Adventures of Women in Tech yang meng-highlight gimana sih jadi wanita di industri tech. Speaker kedua kita ada Tanya Rolf, gender lens investor dan juga well-known founder of VC yang memang visi misinya itu untuk membantu startup wanita. Jadi dia juga keren banget. Di sesi kedua kita ada panelist dari Indonesia, Abigail Muria, co-founder of Lalita dan juga What is Up Indonesia. Kita ada Mustika Wijaya, co-founder dan executive director at Solar Chapter. Dan last but not least, kita ada Madeline Setiono, yaitu co-founder at Cornerstone Education dan juga consultant business analyst di salah satu global consulting company. Keren banget ya. Oh, ini ada banyak nih yang udah tulis di chat nih. Hai Yolanda dari Surabaya. Hai Ramani dari Jakarta. Ada Nyanyu dari Bandung. Wow, it's so diverse. We have people from Jakarta, from Jember, dari Tangsel, dari Bandung. Welcome semuanya. Hai teman-teman. Hai Putri. Alright, kita ada satu lagi yang aku pengen kasih tahu ke teman-teman. Hari ini event kita disponsori oleh Nice to Meet You Skin. Kalau udah datang dari tadi kalian udah bisa lihat ya iklan-iklannya di Nice to Meet You. Nice to Meet You Skin launched in March 2021 to bring more reliable and minimalist skincare products for your daily routines. Their ingredients are friendly for all skin types and for all genders because everyone deserves to have healthy skin. Head up to their Instagram account at Nice to Meet You Skin for more information. Dan ayo let's take care of our skin with Nice to Meet You. Mereka beneran company yang keren banget, teman-teman. Mereka tuh punya visi misi untuk punya skincare yang genderless. Jadi kayak untuk cowok-cowok yang perlu skincarean, untuk kalian yang lagi jerawatan gara-gara stres pandemi, go ahead, go to Nice to Meet You. They have amazing products on their Instagram dan juga they are available in Shopee. Alright. Di sini kita ada teman-teman lagi yang baru join. Silahkan yang baru join. Hai Wiwi, hai Gaya, dan hai Dina. And hai Tasha. Tasha kayaknya udah sering banget ya ikut event kita. Seru banget deh ngelihat teman-teman yang emang dulu sempet datang ke acara, terus sekarang datang lagi. As always, we love and appreciate all your support here at Vampire. We wouldn't be where we are without you. So thank you so much everybody who's here. Aku mungkin gak bakal terlalu banyak basa-basi ya, karena I know you are all excited to start our first session today. Jadi, I would like to introduce our two speakers for the first session, two amazing women. Yang pertama, the first one, Alana Karen, Director of Search Platforms in Google, author and speaker. And we also have Tanya Rolf. She is a gender lens investor, a well-known public figure in the investing field. Now, Miss Tanya Rolf, can you turn on your camera for us to be able to spotlight you? For all of our audiences, I would also like to say that this session will be conducted in English. Don't worry, we will have a recording of it and also we'll summarize it for you in Bahasa for those who want to know more. Hi, Miss Karen. Nice to meet you. I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Hi, Miss.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us in this panel session today. We are really, really excited. Before we start, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Yorin. I'm one of the co-founders of Fempire, and it is an honor for me to be here with two very esteemed female panelists. I'm very, very excited. Before we start, I'd like to ask, what's the best way to call you? Would you like me to call you Miss Karen or Alana?
Alana's fine.
Oh, what about you, Miss Rolf? Do you have any nickname you want me to use? Oh, sorry, I don't think we can hear you.
Call me Tanya.
Hi, Tanya.
Hi.
That's a really good mic. That was ASMR-ish right there.
I'm a podcaster, so I have all the gear.
That's amazing. Well, we'll be not only getting insight, but getting like soothed by your So yeah, how are you doing today? What time is it where you are now?
It's 2:12 here. I'm in Singapore.
Oh, okay. And Alana,
I'm in the California Bay Area, and so it's 10 p.m. 10, a little bit after.
Oh, I think you're a bit frozen, but 10 p.m. Wow, thank you so much for joining us. It'll be a good, is it Saturday there or is it Sunday?
It's Saturday for her. I'm not sure she's gone. We're about 15, 16 hours ahead of Alana.
It's Saturday. Yeah, it's Saturday.
Okay.
I'm going to turn off my video sometimes.
Okay.
Just because it seems to be really choppy tonight for some reason.
Oh, okay. No worries. As long as you can hear us, let us know if you can't or if I need to repeat any questions. A quick reminder to our audience members that we have a Q&A session after this panel. So feel free to put in the questions in the chat box so that we'll be able to ask Alana and Tanya all of your questions about women empowerment. The Fempire team has prepared a few questions for the panel. And we would like to start by asking, could you share a little bit about what you're doing currently, what you're up to now? Maybe we can start with Alana.
Yeah, sure. This is what I look like, but I'm going to turn off my video just so we're sure this comes across. And then I'll turn it on and off every once in a while so you remember what I look like. But yeah, currently I work at Google. I'm a director of search platforms. And so in my day-to-day, I'm leading a team of program managers and making sure that we're supporting the development of our search infrastructure. And in my free time, I have a family, I have kids, etc. 2 dogs you might hear and a cat. But I also have written a book called The Adventures of Women in Tech. And I'm really trying to get out there. That's why I'm on at 10 p.m. at night, my time, to really spread this message of belonging for women in tech and all these different stories and career paths and backgrounds that women can have. And I have a follow-up workbook with exercises coming out next year.
You all heard it here first. Make sure to check out Alana's book, or Adventures of Women in Tech, and her upcoming workbook. We also just had an event actually about 2 to 3 months ago, talking about careers in tech, and we invited a lot of HR from tech, and they told their stories about how, you know, there's a big gap in the tech industry for women. So yeah, thank you for joining us at our event today. What about you, Tanya? What's your day-to-day right now, and what are you currently up to?
Sure. Thank you for having me today and inviting me along. So I'm Tanya, and I'm, as I mentioned, based in Singapore, originally from London, and previously sort of started my career in law firms in the UK and Australia, and I've been in Singapore for around 5 years now. Other than being super hot all the time, I am loving it, except for the last couple of years, which have been incredibly tough under COVID rules. But otherwise, everything is great here. And when I arrived into Singapore, I started a investment network, sort of network of investment angels to support women entrepreneurs, because I noticed that in the startup space, which Singapore does exceptionally well at, there was no female representation, both as founders or funders. So I created a network of women to come together and pool our resources and support women entrepreneurs across Southeast Asia. So we did that for a number of years, and then organically moved that across into a venture capital fund. And more recently, in fact, we haven't even launched yet. We're sort of going live tomorrow, actually, which is why I'm working today, on Sophia, which is an education platform and community for women, trying to address the gender wealth gap and gender investing gap, because there's a huge gap between the genders when it comes to finances. And I think that having a lack of diversity amongst the investors in the world leads to a lack of diversity in the founders that we see that receive funding. So that's what I'm out to address. Also have an awesome podcast just to showcasing amazing women in the innovation and finance and investing space, just to really try to share about role models, really awesome role models, female role models, to just sort of try and inspire others.
Wow, that's amazing. Both Alana and Tanya, you are both so deep in experience in terms of supporting other women, and hearing your stories, not just hearing from what you're currently doing right now, but looking at your LinkedIn and your history of helping out women. It's really, really something amazing to see, and I hope that we'll be able to discuss some of those aspects and some of those advice and transfer them to our audiences here. As you know, in Indonesia, I think we're experiencing a really, really still a big gap in terms of pay, a big gap in terms of education, and that's what Fempire is trying to do, slowly affecting smaller communities, trying to give them the confidence to approach a career that they want, to be empowered to pursue different aspects that they didn't think would be possible. Thank you, Alana. Thank you, Tanya. Our second question on the topic of women empowerment is, in your own words, what does championing women empowerment look like, especially in the professional world? Maybe we could start with Tanya.
Championing
women empowerment. What does that personally, what does that mean in your own words?
I think that for me, everything is about visibility, and I think that for too long now, women have been socialized from a very early age to fit in, to be quiet, to perhaps be subservient, and to just sort of try to be as small as possible, and not, and having a voice, having an opinion, having taking action and speaking out against things actually has historically worked against many women, and we've often been seen as very difficult and challenging if we have that within us. So for someone like me, a natural rule breaker, from a very early age, I've always been the person that speaks out, even as I say the words and I know I'm speaking out against X, Y, or Z. I know that this is not doing me any favors, because I know that I'm being perceived as a challenging, difficult woman. But I can't stop, and nor should we, because I think that for too long now we've been in the shadows, and actually we're the majority population in the world. We're 51% of the population. So this makes no sense whatsoever. We also have 90% of the purchasing power in the world. So we have a third of the world's wealth. So it's just madness. So for me, it is about being visible and being vocal. And I think that when we normalize that, so if there's more people doing that, and I want to be part of that, we no longer become difficult, because we are the majority, instead of a difficult minority. So it's just being seen and being heard.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. The reason why is because in Indonesia, there's a lot of, we'll talk about this too, I think in 2 or 3 questions after this, but in Indonesia, there's a lot of microaggression. And often because of how we were raised here, the culture of raising women as housewives, raising women as, more supportive roles and stay-at-home moms, they tend to lose confidence in terms of their career, in terms of how smart they are, or how they're able to pursue different jobs. So I agree with you. That is an amazing point of view. Being visible and vocal is something that we need to empower women with. What about you, Alana? What's your take on championing women empowerment and what it looks like in the professional world? Maybe you could give us also a tech perspective on what you've experienced.
Well, I was actually going to say a very similar thing. I often talk about how we have been historically trained in our culture as women. And then as you think about that in school, it's tended to benefit us because we are studying hard, being quiet, getting our work done. But then when we get into business, that same thing means we're not leader quality. And we have to somehow get comfortable taking up more space, and we have to find our voice at the same time. But somehow we have to not push society so hard that then they think of us as this angry, loud woman. So it's a really delicate balance. And I think for me, empowerment is helping women find that voice. And much like Tanya talks about, lessening over time that societal expectation of women being just this perfect thing at all times. And it's still really hard, and it's consistent across the world, but still very difficult, particularly in traditional environments that are still finding their place outside the home for women.
I agree completely. I think even as an attendee of previous Fempire events, we've spoken about how the difference between getting a job for a female and a male in one of the startups that we were talking to is that sometimes they tend to look at the qualifications for the job and feel like they aren't able to work for it, or they're not qualified enough, while the same man with the same qualifications as the female has more confidence. That way they still apply. So it's the difference between confidence, right, and applying, because the female applicant could have gotten the job. She just was more conditioned to think that she was not qualified enough, or she shouldn't move forward unless she has all the answers. So yeah, for all of our audiences, that's make sure to get your notepads out. You remember the advice that's being said here, because it's really important for all of us to get together and make each other more visible, make each other more vocal. If you see your friends or if you see your coworkers not being heard, make sure that as females we have to stand up for each other, and make sure that we have to give them the space and give them the visibility. The next question we have is for both of you also. Being an advocate for women empowerment, what are some of the highlights, some of the best moments, and some of the lowlights, some of the more frustrating moments being in this field? Maybe anybody would like to start first? It's open to the floor.
Sure, I can.
Oh, go for it, Alana. Go for it.
Okay. But did I pause then? Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Oh, now I think we can't.
Okay, now you can.
No.
So I think the highlights have been absolutely the personal stories I get back from women about how the stories in the book, how they really helped them, how they feel like they belong, like they saw so many stories in that book that reminded them of themselves, that made them feel like how they felt was normal. And sometimes when I get reached out to on LinkedIn, for example, I can actually help people with advice about their career and how they are finding steps. And just this last week, I met with someone who had just gotten the job she was working on when we were talking, and I'd been able to advise her on that. So I just think that there's so much I get from helping other people and see them succeed and see them move forward. And those have absolutely been the highlights. I think the lowlights often have to do with how hard it can be to convince people to focus in this area. And even when I was trying to get a book deal, it just didn't seem that compelling to publishers. And when you're trying to place a news article in a publication, there's only specific ones that are really interested in this viewpoint. And especially if you're trying to take a more positive tone and encouraging tone, they're less interested. They want that sexy, horrible story about working in tech far more than they want the story that would encourage you to get in there and make amazing money, right? And change your career. So I might have paused a little bit there, but they just want that story instead of hearing the story about making amazing money and having a great career. So I think that's been the most discouraging. It's a little bit of that. What is the world really interested in, and why aren't they interested in this?
Mm-hmm. They wanted the drama. They wanted a more dramatic, I guess, vision, which is sometimes not even the reality of the situation, where what's, if you could share with us a little bit, what was it in the book that was more that they wanted to romanticize, or maybe make more like sexy?
Yeah, I think there's money there for some reason, and then I wonder who's paying that money. It's definitely not the women.
Oh, okay. What about you, Tanya? What are some of the highlights and some of the lowlights of being in women empowerment and fighting for a lot of visibility and a lot of space for women?
It's a great question. I think the highlights definitely are when I compare what I'm doing to my previous career, say in law. This feels much more, I'm much more passionate about it. And I think that when one is passionate about something, we tend to not only, try harder, work harder, be better, and all of those things, but it naturally leads to more success. And it feels much more fulfilling because I have a 5-year-old daughter, and the world that we have today is not the world that I want for her as an adult. And I think that is my motivation, and that is what makes me feel happy at the end of the day, that I've done a little bit, a very small bit, but to improve that for her in the years to come. Some of the hard parts and the most frustration, I would say one of the most frustrating things that I've experienced in this space is to do with when I went to the market to try to raise capital. So as I mentioned earlier, I believe that we need to have more diverse investors in the world, because we're around, I think we're in the high 90s of male VCs, venture capitalists globally, with very few. I think maybe the figure is around 7% of decision makers in venture capital funds globally are women. So my view was that more diverse venture capitalists leads to more diverse founders. So I'm part of many groups of female investors globally, a lot in the West, a lot in the US, a lot in Europe, where I'm from. Not so many over here in Asia, because I think venture capital is still quite a new sort of, it's still very nascent. And I think that when I went out to the market to try to raise capital for a fund to support women entrepreneurs, I was very optimistic. I was super, it was like my first day of school. I went, had a spring in my step. I had my new shoes on, and I was super excited to go and do something amazing, because there were all these corporates out there saying that they wanted to support women, that they were now focusing on women entrepreneurs, on women employees, women. It's a big hot topic. If you look on a lot of corporate websites, a lot of banks, a lot of wealth managers, financial institutions, they talk a big, great game about supporting women. So there I was with my shiny new shoes and briefcase and saying, hey, here we are with this amazing fund in Southeast Asia to support women entrepreneurs. And guess what? No one else is doing it. I thought, the stars would be aligned, and I would be singing all the way to the bank and sharing my money with female entrepreneurs across Asia. And what it turns out is that I had this huge crash to the floor when I realized that, it's not just that we don't have enough VCs, female VCs in the world, or diverse VCs generally. It's that institutional capital, where the money starts right at the top, is completely biased, and it flows from biased institutional investor to biased venture capitalist to a founder that looks exactly like the VC and the institutional investor. And that was a really low moment for me in my career, because I realized that this was just ingrained in our culture, in our society, that this is how capital flows. And there was a lot of lip service being paid towards women empowerment and gender equality, etc. It's very trendy for companies to have, we're big supporting women at the moment because everyone else is, so we need to say that too. Well, let me see the money, because I don't see it. So that was the biggest sort of challenge and lowest moment for me.
Wow, it's something that you don't really see in the public eye. It's not something, it is kind of whispered about, it's kind of talked about in a more generalized conversations, but I didn't know that it was like this prevalent thing, that it does come from the top. It does come from the top. And could you share with us a little bit, how did you get over that bump of being discouraged from your first low moment?
Yeah, I can, because this is actually a high moment. So this is great. So that low moment came when I was heading into the Christmas break. So probably exactly this week last year, I thought I would have secured all the funding for my fund by then. And I went into the Christmas break in a very disappointing position and feeling very disheartened. And I took the Christmas break to really rethink what am I doing? I'm banging my head on this wall. What am I going to do? And I got a piece of paper out and I was really thinking about, okay, but who cares about supporting women founders? Who cares about building women that are building businesses for us women? We are the majority of the population, and we live in a world where businesses are being built by men for men. It makes no sense. Funded by men. Where are the women in this conversation? So I sat there and I thought, okay, who's going to really care about my mission? And it was a eureka moment of thinking, well, women care about supporting women who are holding a lot of wealth, particularly in Asia, a huge amount of wealth in amongst females in Asia. And it's increasing at a very, at an exponential rate. And I think that I then realized I needed to work with women in order to support women, which is where the idea for Sophia came about, because that enabled me to educate and empower, take a group of women who have the money and not necessarily the knowledge and the skills, and bring them up to a level where they can make an informed and educated decision on investing. And then we can, with those females, support women entrepreneurs. So that for me is amazing, because it was a terrible journey, but I've got to somewhere great. And not only am I now helping women increase their personal wealth, and wealth creation, I'm actually supporting more women entrepreneurs with via those women. So it's a double whammy of good.
That's good. It's pretty simple if you think about it.
Yes.
It is. It's just the solution is women, just women.
Exactly.
Supporting more women. I'm a bit curious, Alana, since you are a director of search platforms at Google, you've been working there for 20 years. You have had a completely different experience from Tanya in terms of ensuring women participation and inclusivity. What was it like for you working in Google and, trying to fight for women inclusivity in the tech industry?
Yeah, I often talk about this journey that I had, where I had this journey where I didn't realize when I was getting into tech that there weren't that many women in tech. It was sort of, it was 20 years ago. So it was sort of the beginning of this really internet company thing. And you didn't know what it was going to be. And when I joined Google, I joined a team with a lot of women leaders, as it turned out. It was an operations team. So it had customer service. Hold on, I'm just waiting for it to catch up with me. It was an operations team with customer service. And I think that was part of why it had more women, because you'll find service-based roles often do have a higher percent of women. And it was only later.
Oh, I think you got cut off there. While we wait for Alana to reconnect, I just
I'm sorry, I'm back. I don't know. Okay. It's like really intermittently choppy. I'm so sorry. You think I'd be in the Bay Area and it would be great because doesn't internet come from here? But no. Anyway, but yeah, we're at an internet company. I joined the technical side of the business, and that's when I start to feel like I'm the only woman in the room. And so that's because the numbers on the technical side of the business were more like 20% women.
Okay. And then when did so you were inspired with your experience in tech, right, to write this book and your upcoming workbook. So could you tell us the challenges that you faced that inspired you to, want to write this book and start working on women inclusivity in tech?
Yeah, I think that I saw that now that I was on the tech side of the business, I was seeing much more of the challenge of there being fewer women and therefore fewer role models. And when you looked out into the world, there were articles and stories being written about women in tech, but often they were the women that made it to the tippy top. So they were the CEO or the COO or the VC, the famous VC founder. But there wasn't a lot for women who were just starting out or who were in the middle of their careers. And if they were lucky, they made it into some kind of network for support. But a lot of them were sprinkled all over the place, feeling rather alone. And so that was really what, I was starting to write articles on LinkedIn. I was seeing people respond to my story. And I was thinking, there's no book with women's stories from all different backgrounds. There's a book here with just 4 VC people. There's a book here with 1 founder. There's a book here with 1 COO. But I want to see a book with lots of different backgrounds in technical roles, non-technical roles in tech, like sales and legal. I want to see all these different things. And it was my eureka moment, as Tanya says, where I was like, oh, I can write that book. I know people. I know how to get in touch with people I don't know, and just start to interview them, ask them some questions, and collect these stories for other women so that they can see that they belong. And it was then, as I was doing speaking engagements for the book, and I kept giving the same advice over and over again about how you speak up in a room or how you network or whatever it is, that I said, oh, we could easily do a workbook follow-up to this. And for the workbook, I intentionally sought out some co-writers so that we would represent different backgrounds, different experiences. And that was another way that I felt like I could bring women along with me, is giving them a part of this piece of building up their reputation. So now 4 women I worked with will have a book with their name on it. And that was an important piece of it too for me, was really this feeling of helping others and build their careers.
I'm on mute. Okay, well, that is really interesting, because it's true that I think we've also had a speaker come on here before and say that they were a part of a team. They were the HR for a team where the tech was 100% male. And it wasn't just because they weren't looking for female applicants, but when they got female applicants, they got smaller jobs, more administrative jobs, even though they were still in the tech industry, in the tech section. And that's why they never got promotions. And that's why overall it still stayed male dominated. Going on to my next discussion, actually, this is a really, really interesting discussion. So previously we talked about visibility and, being vocal about women empowerment as a way to champion other women. One thing that we deal a lot with in Indonesia and in a lot of many countries, I believe, is microaggression. So microaggression is intentional or unintentional actions, for our viewers here, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative attitudes towards stigmatized or culturally marginalized groups. So sometimes this could look as like females that want to speak their idea in a meeting, not being cut off, not being heard. Or it could be that, the projects given to females in the workplace are more admin, they're more low development projects. Speaking of in the topic of being vocal and visibility, can you share with us what do you think are some of the most common forms of microaggressions that women face in the workplace? Potentially those that women don't even realize they're going through, that's holding them back. And how can we deal with them in an effective way? The floor is open to whoever wants to start first, maybe Alana or Tanya.
I can go. I can give a quick start.
Sure.
I think that, by the way, you're seeing my like crazy background right now because I decided the internet was better here, even though you were going to see like the mess. I think the number one most common one, and sometimes women spend years thinking it's them, is men not listening to them. So they'll be in a meeting, classic, classic, classic. They'll be in a meeting, the woman will say something. Nobody really registers it. The conversation goes on. A couple minutes later, a man will say something. The man will say pretty much what the woman said. And everyone will think it's a great idea. And for literally years, women will ponder, how am I not communicating right? Why don't they hear me? Why isn't it coming across to them? And it turns out to be sort of societal. Men weren't trained to listen to women. They weren't trained to think of women's opinions as being educated or potentially even more educated or wise or even more wise or whatever it is. And so they just blank when a woman's talking, honestly, which is awful. And I'm smiling as I say it as if it isn't an awful thing, but it is what is happening. And we can drive ourselves crazy working on our communication skills when it's really the other people in the room who have to work on their listening skills. And so I think the most powerful thing in those kind of environments is when someone senior in that culture realizes that that's going on and starts to say, let Yorin finish her point. Oh, wait, Yorin said that a couple of minutes ago. Yorin, did you have more on that? Right? It's way more powerful than you being like, hey, I said that. It's when that starts to happen, some leader models it, and then others start to model it elsewhere. And so sometimes you might need to do some advocating behind the scenes to explain, hey, have you noticed that this happens? I wondered if you could +1 my points just so that everyone hears them. And let's see if we can change the culture a little bit just together if someone senior doesn't step up. But it sometimes takes an ally. It does. It's going to take some male peer or maybe some senior female, if there is one, to +1 you or back you up, draw you in to bring you in. And so if you're constantly spending time working on your communication skills, I think that you might want to shift a little bit and think about how allyship could help you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I actually, a lot of people are in the chat box. They're saying that this has happened to them, and I believe that to be true because it has also happened to me. And it really is. You need an ally. For me, it was my manager who backed me up and said, "Yorin, stop apologizing for things that you're not wrong for, or you should." Elaborate your point. That was a good idea. And that really, even though it was a small thing, it was just 1 or 2 comments, it changed behavior. It had a big impact. What about you, Tanya? What do you think about this question? What do you think about microaggression, how women, we can deal with it in the workplace in an effective way?
It's a great question. I think echo what you said, Alana, and I think that we have to align ourselves with. I remember from my law firm days, and the female. We had a lot of law has a lot of gender inequality, and females that aligned themselves with supportive, forward-thinking, smart male partners tended to get further than others, than those who did not. And I saw this when I was having discussions around salary reviews for employees, so male lawyers and female lawyers. And often you would see that we would give out, in fact, I would give out salary announcement to all of our lawyers, male and female. And you could bet your bottom, and included in there would be our bonus information as well. You can bet your bottom dollar that the first 10 people to be through my door to complain about their salary and bonus were all men. And there was the women, in my view, from speaking to them, you know, very happy with what they've received, and okay, great, this is what I'm worth, and I'm grateful for that. Versus the men, well, I'm worth so much more than this. This is ridiculous. I'm going to go and, you know, rant about it and get some more money. And often they did. And so I could see that there was this salary discrepancy occurring, because all of a sudden our male lawyers were going like this, whilst the females were just kind of, you know, ticking along at the rate of inflation or equivalent. And so I think salary discrepancy is huge. As we know, gender pay gap is real. And so it comes back to Alana's point, actually, that what happened was the male partners that came and spoke to us about certain female lawyers who deserved more money ended up getting it because they had that alignment with an ally, as we call it. Now, this is ridiculous. As I'm explaining this to you, this is utterly ridiculous, but we don't live in a world where we all just sit there quietly and what we rightly deserve comes to us. So, you know, those female lawyers that were aligning themselves with male partners whom they knew would speak up for them, I don't fault them at all, because that's exactly what they had to do under the circumstances. But I'm not saying that's right. But we don't operate in a world where we all just get what's rightly deserved. So alignment and allyship is definitely very important. And I think that the, you know, we are seeing change when it comes to more women in leadership roles. We're slowly waking up to the value of that, i.e. more profitable companies if you have more senior leadership as females. It's a no-brainer. And I think when that happens and we get more, we're seeing more diversity, we'll see less of that in the workplace, I hope.
Thank you, Tanya and Alana, for that insight. Maybe to just also summarize for our attendees here, the first thing you talked about would be, you know, what's important in championing women empowerment is increasing visibility for other females and being more vocal, giving them a chance to speak, giving them a chance to portray their ideas, and also just giving them a chance to be seen in general. And then we also talked about different journeys you've been on, Alana and Tanya, how you, as a trying to find funding for VC, has found that, you know, the solution is just more women should support other women. And that is so far a great solution that you've seen been working. And then for Alana, there's a big gap in terms of, okay, the females working in the tech industry, and, you know, we should always still try to include them. That's why she's making a book. For all the attendees here, make sure to check out her book and her upcoming workbook for all of you who are interested in a career in tech. And then lastly, we talked about microaggression and how in order to speak up, in order to face the challenges that are prevalent due to society, due to culture, you sometimes have to find allies in other men or allies in your peers if you're not able to get the direction or the empowerment from your seniors. Thank you so much for the insight, Alana and Tanya. Now we would like to move on to the audience Q&A. We have so many questions that are piling on. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get to all of them, but hopefully if you'd like to reply to them in the chat box, you're welcome to. We have a first question here shared to me from Ramani. I feel like some men would try to avoid women empowerment due to their extreme views that all women are feminazis, which is, she quoted, totally untrue. So many men try to stay neutral by being silent. Yet this also isn't the right way, since they should be an active ally. So How can we get more men involved in the conversations about women empowerment?
That's a really, really tough one, because if you think about it, every guy I ever spoke to when I was trying to raise capital or talking to them about a fund for women, every single guy said to me, "Oh, I'm a big believer in women." Okay, then what are you doing? And the answer, and that's the question I would ask, and the answer is much like the person that's asked this question, not a lot, because the reality is that it doesn't actually affect them. Because as a male, they're a beneficiary of our patriarchal system. So it takes a really special type of guy to see that and to actively do something about it. But when you do find those guys, and I try to do this on LinkedIn a lot, I try to showcase them and, you know, just normalize them as a ally, as a champion for women. And I tried to get as many men involved in my fund as possible, and didn't make a big deal of it as per se, but just to try to normalize it and say, well, they're just seeing the opportunity here, the financial opportunity. I think Alana mentioned something in the chat along the side there about having, you know, governments seeing the benefits of having women in business, and because it's affecting the, you know, the GDP. And that's absolutely right. And I think that if we can just, you know, big that up in some way, and put that out there as much as we can, I think it just normalizes it and makes men feel safe enough to step up themselves. But it's a really tough one.
Yeah, and I would just add, I try to take all the emotion out of it, because I think that they tend to just think, oh, well, women are emotional creatures and they get to just write us off because of it. And I take all the emotion out of it, and I just keep hammering on the points. Like, have you seen the studies? The women business, you know, the businesses with women on the board do better. The businesses with women on the leadership team do better. It's showing up in the numbers. Like, this isn't an emotional thing. Like, you want more money, right? I want more money, right? This is a pure business practicality. And it's not just women, it's other kinds of diversity. You have a diverse team, you make better choices. You have a diverse team, you develop better products. And just keep trying to hammer on that, and make them feel like it's a no-brainer, that this isn't a emotional decision. This is a business logic decision, which their brains like.
Yeah.
I'm on mute. That's a really good point. So from Tanya, be with those allies who are allies and make sure you highlight their stories. And then from Alana, your advice is to not make it emotional. Show them the numbers. If even something better, show them the numbers that affect them, so that they're emotionally or they're more involved in the conversation. Thank you. So we have a next question from Olfaira. This is another tough question. What do you think about the dominance of patriarchy in Asian countries, especially in Indonesia, where it has become a hereditary culture that women should be full-on housewives, stay-at-home moms, rather than career-focused women? Are there any advice to face these or to improve knowledge about women empowerment in patriarchal countries like Indonesia? Maybe Tanya, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, it's not just the patriarchy we have to deal with in Indonesia, right? There's a religious aspect as well in some countries, and I think that is something that I cannot, even think about entering into. I don't come from a heavily religious country. And even if if you think about US, I mean, Alana is probably from a more religious country than I am, but I think, Indonesia has a very different following and a different focus. And I think that that is something that I cannot begin to comment on, because I don't profess to understand how that suppresses or oppresses women. I have some thoughts, but that's probably not something for us to talk about today. In terms of the patriarchy, now this is something that is not going to change overnight, and I think that each country has its own challenges. For example, I champion trying to raise more capital for women for their startups, so that women can have more funding and we can all have more businesses focused for us. Meanwhile, in India, the challenge is not, how do we get more women women entrepreneurs finance? It's how do we get more women even in school? So the challenges are different from country to country. And even when we look at Asia as a whole, as the question asks, Indonesia is different to Thailand, which is different to Singapore, which is different to Hong Kong. The challenges, the religion is different, the level of education is different. Everything is so diverse in this part of the world. It's not like Europe, where largely the countries are all fairly similar-ish, certainly compared to Asia. My view is this, and we as individuals, we cannot all solve the world's big problems, right? Even with what I'm doing, it's a drop in the ocean, right? And what Alana's doing, it's a drop in the ocean. We all know that. But we as humans, as individuals, as me as Tanya, I command the respect that, that I get. So if people are assuming things, if people are, suggesting things to me that I don't agree with, that I want to stand up against, I do that, and I command the respect that I want and I feel I deserve. And I don't allow myself to be pushed around. Now, that doesn't always work. And I think someone asked about a question around, in Indonesia, for example, it's very difficult to stand up because, and as I mentioned earlier, we are seen as difficult. And it's about choosing your words very carefully, but not being pushed around. I think it was Ruth, the judge in the US, Ruth Ginsburg, she said that women should stand up. I forget the exact words, but women should stand up for themselves, but do it in a way that is bringing people on board, rather than excluding them. Unless, of course, people are being extremely rude, then I have no problem with being extremely rude back. But if you're trying to get people on board, which I think is actually the answer, it's not about us fighting men. It's not about us trying to get on top either. It's about just having a place at the table, a seat at the table that's equal to. And I think that we can do that in a way with our words. Think very carefully about the words you choose, is what I'm saying, so that we're not excluding people, we're actually bringing them on board with our mission.
Wow. That is a great point to close on. Alana, would you like to add before we summarize the session?
That was awesome.
That was really great. Just to summarize, just to reiterate from your point, Tanya. So to all of our audiences, looking from Ruth Bader Ginsburg as an inspiration, and from Alana and Tanya as two inspirational women that we have learned so much from today. The last point, I think, of this session that would really cap it all off is just, as a woman, if you're looking towards women empowerment and you're looking towards, standing up for yourself, do it in a way where you also bring more people in, right? Tanya, is that was what you were talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of excluding people. I think that's a great step towards better women empowerment here in Indonesia. We already have 63 people in the audience. Imagine what that already looks like, right? 63 people standing up for themselves, standing up for their peers, and making sure to include other women and other men and other allies in the process. All right. Wow, that was such a great point to end at. Thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you so much, Alana. This has been a great conversation. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today for the first session. Untuk teman-teman, jangan kemana-mana dulu. We still have our second session with our Indonesian panelists, and we're gonna dive deeper into more local cultural aspects of women empowerment. So don't go anywhere. But yes, personally, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us in our panel session today. Before we end, I'd like to take a small picture just to remember this moment and remember this panel session for our Instagram also. So Vampire admins, are you ready to take the picture? Okay, awesome. I'm gonna count down 3, 2, 1, and then we'll take the picture. 3, 2, 1. All right, perfect. Thank you so much again, Alana. Thank you so much, Tanya, for spending your Saturday night and Sunday evening with us. Thank you so much for joining the panel.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the insight. Hope to see you all soon. Hope to talk to you all soon. Alright, teman-teman, wow, amazing banget ya teman-teman. Jangan kemana-mana dulu. Kita mau mulai nih sesi kedua. Amazing panel session we've had so far. Sesi kedua kita ada amazing 3 inspirational women yang kita ngajak. I know some of you have waited for the second session. Di sesi kedua ini kita bakal lebih deep dive kayak women empowerment di Indonesia karena 3 speaker kita hari ini have faced different challenges in women empowerment. They have also been advocates of women empowerment. Without further ado, aku mau kenalin ke kalian 3 perempuan yang keren-keren banget di sesi kedua ini. I would like to welcome to the stage Abigail Limuria, Madeline Setiono, dan Mustika Wijaya. Nah, Abigail adalah co-founder Lalita Project dan juga co-founder What Is Up Indonesia. She has been featured in so many publications and have interviewed female figures in Indonesia kayak Ibu Sri Mulyani, Bu Susi. Next kita juga ada Madeline Setiono. Madeline is a prominent figure in the career development space. Dia adalah co-founder Cornerstone Career Development Program yang sudah membantu lebih dari 300 murid-murid di Indonesia. Dan juga she's doing full-time as a business analyst di McKinsey. Nah, last but not least, kita ada Mustika Wijaya, panggilannya Ika, co-founder dan executive director of Solar Chapter, a well-renowned non-profit yang mempunyai misi untuk mengembangkan daerah terpencil di Indonesia dengan fokus menyediakan akses air bersih, fasilitas pendidikan, dan juga pemberdayaan ekonomi untuk perempuan. Hai Abi, Maddie, and Ika, welcome to the stage.
Halo. Halo Yorin, halo semuanya.
How are you today? Seru banget deh kita. I've been waiting for this for so long. I'm so excited for this chat. Kalian lagi ngapain aja? Biasanya hari Minggu kalau nggak ikut panel session nih biasa ngapain? Kayaknya Abby agak. I think Abby is frozen.
Ya.
Mungkin Medi atau Ika, biasa kalian hari Minggu ngapain kalau nggak ikut panel nih?
Kalau gue sih biasa kayak ada olahraga, badminton gitu, mungkin pagi-pagi, terus sore ke cafe, set goals for next week, and then maybe family time ya, kalau sore. Gitu.
Wow, that's healthy work-life balance ya. Oh, nice.
Cuma hari Minggu doang tapi.
Nggak apa-apa, at least that's how you start hari Minggu dulu gitu loh. Nanti hari Sabtu Minggu, abis itu move on Jumat Sabtu Minggu gitu. What about you, Abi?
Minggu beda-beda ya. Sometimes just chill, sometimes jalan-jalan, beda-beda sih. Tapi usually kayak doing non-work stuff.
Nice, that's also good work-life balance. What about you, Maddie? Lo kerja atau ngapain nih hari Minggu biasanya?
Ya, I second that. I mean, kayaknya keren sih Mustika kayak bisa set goals for the next week. Tapi gue biasanya kalau weekend kayak bener-bener not do work-related stuff until the last minute. So maybe kalau misalnya pagi-pagi olahraga, terus kayak makan, atau kayak coba lihat kayak tempat-tempat menarik gitu. Terus baru malamnya kayak if I need to do work, kayak review something before Monday, then I will do that. Itu aja sih.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us di panel session hari ini. Sebenarnya kalian bertiga juga udah lumayan kenal gitu kan ya. Jadi kita di sini kita bakal ngobrol-ngobrol aja, rather than it's not a formal panel session. Kita lebih ke ngobrol kayak dissecting women empowerment di Indonesia. Mungkin tadi kan aku udah jelasin sedikit kayak untuk Ika, Abi, sama Medi, sekarang kalian lagi ngapain. Well, do you want to share a little bit about what you're currently doing right now from your perspective and what you want to share with the audience? Mungkin kita boleh mulai dari Abi.
Oke, halo semuanya. I saw in the chat ada beberapa wibu, so if you're a wibu, hi. Jadi sehari-hari gue itu sekarang sih lagi fokus ke Wiwi sama actually I'm helping my husband punya coffee roastery. Itu paling kayak my main thing. But also kayak as you guys know ada Lalita Project juga yang kita sekarang sih sebenarnya masih lagi proses nulis buku yang kedua. But we're not in a hurry because because of situation COVID apa segala gitu juga. Jadi kayak kita nggak mau terlalu put pressure on like pengen cepet-cepet gitu. So we're taking our time in writing the second book. Kalau misalnya in What Is Up Indonesia atau Yui, I do almost everything sih. Soalnya itu kan masih kayak a project ya, kayak copywriting, and then kayak I make the slides, just curating news and translating them. Terus abis itu kalau misalnya yang di coffee business, I am lebih ke marketing, online marketingnya sih.
I see. Okay. Wow. Kalau misalnya Ika ngapain nih Kak? What are you currently doing right now?
I think currently aku lagi baru berhenti kerja. Actually udah 6 bulan lalu sih berhenti kerjanya. So I had my US jobs previously, terus kerja di Indonesia, tapi company US. Dan work-life balance-nya parah banget sih, karena kan jam 3 mesti tidur gitu, baru tidur. Jadi I decided to quit and then focusing on Solar Chapter right now. Karena emang di Solar Chapter kita tuh lagi mau expansion kan to a lot of villages right now to scale up gitu. Jadi kayaknya operationnya mesti dibenerin from the ground gitu. So I'm focusing on building the operation team sih.
Nice. Kalau Mats, lo lagi ngapain aja sekarang? What are you currently up to?
For me, I think it's mostly work. But then in terms of like other things yang bukan kerja, I just spent like a few months working from Bali. So I think lots of life versus work for me, which I think was amazing and much needed for anyone here. In terms of kayak Cornerstone, since you also mentioned that kita baru aja kayak wrap up our third bootcamp. So I think just a bit of context for everyone. I have an organization that does like career support, career help in the format of bootcamp. Jadi setiap 3 bulan sekali kita ada running bootcamp gitu kayak 4 minggu. Itu end to end, jadi kayak diajarin kayak how do you like pick a job that suits you, how do you apply for it, how do you negotiate, etc. Jadi tahun ini kita total udah ada 3 bootcamp and namanya involving more than like 300 students, participants gitu. So we just wrapped up our third bootcamp and happy to say that on this time around kayak gue udah lebih hands off gitu loh, the team kayak udah mulai ngerti cara run everything by themselves. Jadi kayak satu gue bisa mulai spend more time in like ideating new stuff kayak other programs, and dua gue juga bisa spend more time like connecting with like the team itself, jadi nggak cuma kerjaannya doang gitu.
Iya, kayaknya from what I see tuh Cornerstone lagi seru banget. Kemarin gue baru stalk Instagramnya, terus you guys just finished your program. Untuk kalian by the way, little bit of promo sambil kita panel session. Karena kan di sini juga teman-teman pada yang banyak yang lagi skripsi, lagi UAS, lagi pada murid-murid di kampus kan. If you guys are looking for any programs untuk bantu career development, coba nanti ke Instagram Cornerstone Careers. Dan hopefully when you guys have your next bootcamp, kalian bisa sign up. Okay, thank you so much guys for being here. Mungkin pertanyaan pertama nih kita langsung ngomongin aja ya. What do you think is the biggest misconception about women in the professional world? Menurut kalian personally, kenapa pemberdayaan wanita tuh penting di Indonesia? Ini open to the floor ya, kalau misalkan ada yang mau jawab duluan. Mungkin Abi mau jawab, since you know we've written a book on female stories. Mungkin dari sana, what is one of the biggest about women in the professional world especially, dan kayak kenapa menurut kamu kayak penting kita harus bantu in this pemberdayaan wanita atau women empowerment?
Wow, itu two different question ya. Very very broad and complex question. Kalau the biggest misconception for me, mungkin for me in my circle gitu ya, itu tuh women yang punya karir apa segala tuh usually it doesn't go hand in hand with being a mom atau kayak maybe being like a wife atau kayak, or the fact that career is number one gitu loh, that having a good career is the sole definition of whether you have a meaningful life or not. Padahal I feel like those things are just like different sphere of life kan. Kayak you can excel in like a career, tapi juga you can also excel in your social life, in your family, apa segala gitu. And all are equally important. And bahkan mungkin sometimes I would argue kayak your relationship with people, kayak misalnya your family, close friends, kind of more important than your career gitu. Jadi jangan itu dikorbanin untuk kerja doang gitu kan. Because kan udah ada banyak research yang bilang kayak if your ultimate goal in life is to be happy, then your priority sebenarnya bukan kerjaan tapi relationship gitu. Jadinya kayak I think that's one of the main misconception kayak kalau mau jadi perempuan sukses karir, I need to sacrifice everything else gitu. Tapi sebenarnya enggak. Kayak there is a more balanced way to do it, there is a better way to do it, I think, and takaran antara kayak karir, keluarga, itu beda-beda for everyone gitu kan. Terus abis itu, why is women empowerment is important? I think itu luas banget. Obviously ada dari berbagai macam sudut gitu ya. Tapi kalau misalnya dari sudut yang in general, setiap individu itu, in my opinion, kita kan semua unik gitu, mau kita cowok, cewek atau apa gitu. Kita semua unik, we all uniquely called to wanna do something. Kayak nggak semua orang passionate tentang women empowerment, nggak semua orang passionate tentang climate change, nggak semua orang passionate tentang politik gitu. Each of us tuh we are called for something. Terus each of us uniquely punya talent, punya kebiasaan, kemampuan masing-masing gitu. Artinya setiap kali satu orang yang seharusnya dia bisa kontribusi ke dunia nggak kontribusi karena mungkin kena discrimination atau apa, the whole world tuh rugi. Seharusnya dunia tuh bisa dapat ide, lagu, work of art, project yang sebenarnya tuh ada gitu, tapi karena orang ini dihambat, kita jadi nggak punya gitu. And kita collectively hidupnya lebih enak karena we build on top of each other's work gitu. Jadinya kenapa women empowerment is important, supaya kita bisa nge-empower setiap orang yang kompeten to do what they are competently meant to do. Supaya as a general, as a human being, sama-sama kita standar kehidupannya akan naik juga guys. Jadi itu kali yang dari aku.
Keren. Kalau misalkan dari Ika gimana, Kak?
Kalau dari gue mungkin pengalaman pribadi aja kali ya. Kalau misalnya for me, I travel a lot to NTT, to rural development kan, to rural areas gitu. Nah, mungkin banyak yang misalnya banyak orang yang bilang, oh itu kan bahaya atau cewek di dalam ruangan aja atau kerja di kantor aja biar nggak usah item-item. Itu sih mungkin ya kayak mungkin itu ya salah satu kayak misconception yang ada di tempat kita. Oh cewek mesti begini gitu. I guess that's yang bikin kata Ibi juga itu ngotak-ngotakin kita dan nggak bikin kita tuh jadi fully gitu as a person ya kan. Dan menurut gue juga penting banget karena kita jadi ada representatif di field gitu. Kalau kita ngelihat dulu mungkin di oil and gas company kan cowok semua, oh kayaknya itu bukan kerjaan gue cewek deh gitu kan. Tapi kalau sekarang udah banyak banget, apalagi di DPR atau dimanapun, menurut gue jadi yang lainnya juga bisa ngerasa, oh gue bisa tuh jadi kayak gitu. Mungkin karena itu penting banget kayak Ebi buat buku 50, kok gue jadi ini sih promo, tapi buat 51 wanita-wanita, jadi kita bisa ngelihat di wanita-wanita yang different field kan, terus bisa ngelihat, oh kayaknya gue cocoknya mau jadi yang kayak gini gitu loh. Kayak someone that I aspire to gitu sih.
I agree, karena kayak sebenarnya hal yang gue ngelihat ya dari Being in Vampire is sebenarnya women empowerment itu untuk banyak orang itu berbeda artinya. Kayak kalau misalkan yang Abi bilang tadi, kayak kalau misalkan goal kalian is to be happy, mungkin women empowerment is having the confidence to work and have a family. Kalau nggak kayak yang Ika bilang, kalau misalkan kerja di different professions itu journey-nya beda. Kalau misalkan di tech beda, kayak Ika going to NTT, going to remote villages itu beda lagi challenges-nya dan misconception-nya. Kalau misalnya dari lo, Matt, menurut lo gimana? Kayak in your own personal life gitu, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions about women in the workplace?
Yeah, I think first of all, gue setuju banget yang tadi Abi ngomong gitu ya, kayak what does kayak women empowerment mean to you gitu, kayak okay, for some people it might mean like starting a family while working, for some people it might mean just starting a family, kayak it doesn't matter gitu. Jadi kayak I think it's a very good combo gitu dari yang si Abi udah ngomong dan yang Ika barusan juga mention. Mungkin buat Ika itu kayak ke NTT, and you know what matters is not really kayak there's no like one size for all kayak solution. It's more like, oh, how do we not empower, how do we like unlock opportunities for all women so that they can do whatever, you know, will make them flourish aja gitu, with their own definition of kayak okay, flourishing in life, right? Tapi kayak if you wanna go back to like my own personal life, menurut gue mungkin dijawab dari misconception dulu. Menurut gue ada dua. Ini dari gue personally ya guys, jadi kayak I mean might not be for everyone, might not be everyone's experience. Tapi yang pertama is that not everyone is against you, right? So I think ini juga a hint, a nod to maybe like culture-nya sosial media zaman sekarang yang kayak very very vocal, very like cancel culture gitu, yang kayak sedikit-sedikit itu kayak oke, patriarki apa gimana, maksud gue kayak okay, yeah, some of those posts kayak have a point, tapi a lot of it is noise, right? And yang dampaknya dengan banyak sekali noise seperti ini, dan yang mengkonsumsi konten-konten tersebut adalah anak-anak muda, perempuan-perempuan muda yang mungkin baru lulus sekolah atau masih kuliah atau mungkin kayak masih sedikit belajar lah tentang dunia ini gitu ya. I mean I've been there too gitu loh, kayak menjadi sebagai perempuan labil gitu, kayak nggak apa-apa gitu, kita semua pernah jadi cewek labil, nggak apa-apa gitu. Tapi dampaknya apa kalau cewek-cewek labil menerima konten seperti itu? You feel like the world is against you gitu, karena lu perempuan gitu. You feel like it's going to be very hard for you to like make it out there gitu. You feel like Indonesia itu sampah banget, kayak pasti kalau nanti gue kerja begini, pasti nanti untuk dapat kerjaan susah banget. Oh, glass ceiling gini. Kayak di Amerika aja, there's this like women gender pay gap of like 0.7 cents or whatever. Pasti nanti kalau gue kerja di Indonesia begini sih. Padahal, I mean, even kayak that type of research is very refutable. I mean, I'm a woman, but I'm also an economist, like by training. So I know there's a lot of nuance behind that gender pay gap, even that economists tuh belum bisa align on gitu. But then of course ditambahin bumbu-bumbu politik ya jadinya hits gitu kan. Dan again, another point, kayak research itu di Amerika belum tentu translate di Indonesia gitu. I might even argue that belum tentu loh kayak apa namanya gender equality at work di Indonesia itu lebih buruk dari di luar negeri. Belum tentu karena dan again ya itu dia, apapun yang lo lihat di social media it's not belum tentu applicable buat setiap situasi di setiap negara ya kan. So that's one, right? Not everyone is against you. And then reflecting on my personal experiences di tempat-tempat kerja yang pernah gue lakukan, jujur banget, gue nggak pernah kesulitan mendapatkan mentor perempuan atau melihat orang di posisi yang lebih tinggi yang adalah seorang perempuan. Dimanapun, mau itu gue di KSP, I mean you would be surprised, right? Di government, tapi sangat banyak sekali. Itu I think in my office di KSP, I think the ratio was like 60-40% women to men. So nggak ada isu sama sekali gitu. Waktu gue sempat kerja di Bukalapak juga, teman-teman manajer gue banyak yang manajernya adalah perempuan gitu. No issue at all, nggak ada masalah soal apa namanya kekurangan figur perempuan di kantor dan lain sebagainya. And now especially when I'm working here at the consulting firm that I'm working at, itu malah sangat institutionalized banget gitu, because it's a global firm dari Amerika, jadi kan mereka very pay attention towards that ya. Jadi benar-benar dibikin panitia untuk kayak women committee, kayak apa namanya allies, mereka adain kayak weekly meetings. Jadi benar-benar jelas, malah benar-benar institutionalized, right? So that's one. Nah, yang kedua adalah bahwa ini sebenarnya another kayak kemiripan dengan jawabannya Abby sama Ika sih. You don't have to be a girl boss gitu loh. Kayak I think that's an illusion gitu. Not everyone needs to be a girl boss. It's not an aspiration that everyone needs to kayak kejar gitu. Bahkan gue maksudnya kayak mungkin orang-orang banyak berpikir kayak, atau mungkin bahkan vampire berpikir, oh gue orangnya karir banget nih, konsultan gitu. Tapi sebenarnya enggak gitu loh. Gue tuh enggak align myself with the definition of girl boss. Kayak I would rather have a more balanced life. Karena semakin mesti kayak gue kesini, ini kayak I realize kayak working as a woman itu enggak for everyone gitu. A lot of women have aspirations untuk kayak jadi ibu rumah tangga, and that's totally fine gitu loh. If you're saying that kita harus membuka semua ini, membuka semua opportunity buat perempuan yang harus kerja nih sekarang, kita harus samain rasio perempuan yang bekerja dengan laki-laki yang bekerja, you're actually disregarding the fact that it's not what all women want, and it's fine gitu. It's fine if some women want to have like more traditional roles in the family, it's totally fine gitu loh. Gitu aja sih menurut gue. Oke, sorry jadi panjang guys.
Nggak apa-apa, classic answer by Maddie. So maybe to conclude ke teman-teman juga ya, jadi kayak sebenarnya tuh poinnya adalah oke, kayak kalian sebagai wanita atau misalkan if there's males in this audience juga, welcome. Itu tuh kalian harus set definisi dulu, apa sih kayak menurut kalian women empowerment untuk kalian. Kayak nggak berarti kayak women empowerment berarti kalian harus jadi girl boss atau kerja 24 jam gitu. Kayak nggak berarti juga as a women empowerment kalian nggak bisa raise family gitu. So I think great point by Ika, Maddie, sama Abi. Kayak pertama, apa sih women empowerment untuk kalian, diri kalian sendiri? What is it that you want to pursue? Yang kedua, don't get discouraged by social media, don't get discouraged by a lot of the negative things that are out there. Kayak kalau kalian punya goal, kalian punya kayak a definisi of what an empowered woman to yourself is, go for it. Thank you Abby, Maddie, and Ika. Nah, next question sebenarnya ini buat Ika nih. Tadi kita sempat cerita sedikit ya. I mean Ika sempat cerita sedikit. So I used to go to college with Ika actually. I used to join. I was in Solar chapter. I think tahun keduanya. Terus gue tuh sempat tulis blognya interviewing Ika. And you know, Ika's been through very interesting journey ya, dari mulai Solar Chapter sampai sekarang. Karena dulu Solar Chapter dimulainya cuma 5 orang. Terus sekarang it has grown internationally, operating di Jakarta, Australia, US, ya kan? And I think you guys have another branch di Hong Kong. Mungkin can you tell us the challenges you faced in Solar Chapter's early years? I remember you telling me about kayak being a woman and kayak mau ke area-area terpencil, gimana kayak kamu juga sempat ada challenges kayak nggak dianggap serius gitu, karena kayak what are you doing here gitu, karena women aren't supposed to be out. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges and how you got through it?
For background, I started Solar Chapter 2017 kan, during my senior year at University of Illinois, sama Yorin juga waktu itu di Illinois. So I have an idea waktu itu bikin pompa air tenaga matahari, tapi bingung banget soalnya mesti terbang jauh di sana 10.000 km away dari Amerika ke NTT. Dan gimana juga cari village-nya. So I fly directly to Jawa Timur buat cari desanya di sana. Dan kepala desa sebenarnya it's yang lebih kayak bikin down itu bukannya about women-nya sih, tapi waktu itu I was like 20 or 19 gitu kan. Dan orang-orang ngelihat kayak aduh ini bocah mau ngapain sih di Jawa Timur gitu kan. Kepala desanya waktu itu gue datang di Jawa Timur, dia bilang kayak, Dek, lain kali bawa izin dong ke sini gitu. Dek, ini surat buat sekolahnya di mana? Ini duitnya nanti gimana? Pokoknya gitu-gitu. Itu lebih kayak, gue jadi mikir kayak, apa gue gak ngerti apa-apa ya? Ya emang gue gak ngerti apa-apa sih waktu itu. Tapi kayak, aduh apa gak bisa ya gitu. So it's not about me being a woman at that time, tapi lebih ke arah yang gue masih kecil dan gue nggak ada pengalaman apa-apa sih, mungkin challenge-nya itu ya. Dan waktu itu belum punya pengalaman, nggak legit juga ini mau fundraise 260 juta buat bangun pompa air gitu sih. Kalau karena women-nya challenge-nya itu tuh menurut gue lebih ke orang tua mungkin khawatir ya, kayak apalagi teman-teman juga khawatir karena mungkin itu nggak safe daerah sana kan buat kita buat travel berdua atau bertiga doang gitu. Jadi mungkin lebih ke arah safety sih ya kalau dari gue.
Oke. Thank you, Kak. Next question kita yang udah disiapin oleh Vampire Team ini untuk Abi. Abi, nah Lalita Initiative, I think a lot of people here, kalian semua pada tahu lah Lalita, buku Lalita dan Lalita Project. Ini tuh sebenarnya udah terpuji banget oleh banyak ikon-ikon perempuan di Indonesia. Tokoh perempuan yang telah diangkat profilnya di buku Lalita ada juga Sri Mulyani, Susi Pujiastuti, Najwa Shihab, dan Susi Susanti. Keren-keren banget. You have spoken to so many inspirational characters in Indonesia. Aku mau nanya, menurut kamu apa pelajaran terbaik tentang women empowerment atau pemberdayaan wanita setelah berbicara sama ikon-ikon wanita ini?
Sebenarnya banyak banget ya. Jadi karena each individual tuh ceritanya unik-unik, challenges mereka juga beda-beda, karena goal yang mereka pengen capai juga beda-beda gitu. Jadi sebenarnya very worth noting, kayak ada lesson yang beda-beda in each konteks. Tapi kalau misalnya pengen ambil garis besar, itu gue setuju banget sama yang Maddie bilang tadi gitu. Kebanyakan yang gue interview, mereka nggak punya mentality yang oh the world is against me, atau kayak oh gue cewek nih jadi pasti hidup gue akan susah gitu. Mereka ya lakuin aja gitu, dan bahkan kadang mereka aja tuh mereka nggak terlalu hyper aware kayak oh I'm doing this as a woman, oh I'm doing that as a woman gitu. They're just doing it gitu. Soalnya kadang kalau kita terlalu hyper aware itu kan kita perception atau kayak the way we look at the world itu bisa interpretasi kita terhadap banyak hal gitu. Kayak misalnya, aku pernah nih di sekolah aku waktu itu ada this girl, dia bikin film. Dia bikin film, terus nggak ada yang nonton filmnya. Film dia kebetulan tentang ada female empowerment message-nya lah gitu. Nggak ada yang nonton. Gue nonton, jelek banget filmnya gitu. Nah, habis itu gue pikir ya, oh wow, ini nggak ada yang nonton karena jelek gitu. Tapi karena dia sangat hyper aware dan dia ngelihat semuanya lewat gender lens, dia bilang, oh kampus ini seksis gitu. Mereka nggak suka film saya karena mereka seksis. Nah, itu tuh sesimpel itu, tokoh-tokoh yang aku interview, mereka nggak ada ngelihat dunia through the gender lens. Mereka, they're just doing what they do, they're just being themselves, and somehow ternyata berhasil gitu. Terus yang kedua, yang gue paling lihat, itu kebanyakan mereka yang akhirnya banyak orang nobatin sebagai role model, mereka nggak pernah taruh menjadi role model atau menjadi inspirasional sebagai goal. Mereka nggak ada tuh, oh saya pengen menjadi inspirasi banyak perempuan, nggak ada. Jarang lah, itu dari yang gue interview dia nggak ada gitu. Mereka cuma pengen jadi diri mereka, do what they love to do, and karena mereka bener-bener kayak sebebas itu, seunik itu, and they're just doing them. Orang-orang secara nggak sadar jadi terinspirasi sendiri. Dan mereka juga nggak banyak, yang kesimpulan yang gue paling suka tuh yang dari gue dapetin tuh, pesan mereka itu tuh bukan kata-kata inspirasi mereka yang mereka kasih tahu di sosmed atau di speech, tapi pesan mereka itu yang mereka itu sendiri gitu. So they're just living as themselves, have fun, dan ternyata orang terinspirasi. Jadi itu sih sebenarnya.
That is very interesting way to look at things sih, jujur aja, karena kalau misalkan if I can recap juga ya Abi, jadi tuh you cannot make inspiration atau misalkan kayak fame atau acknowledgement, it's not a good goal, karena kalau misalnya kalian goalnya itu ya kalian punya accomplishment, itu nggak bermutu gitu, nggak ada real value.
Iya, soalnya kan kalau goalnya saya pengen menjadi inspirasi, it begs the question, inspirasi apa, ya kan? Apanya kosong nih gitu. Jadi inspirasi itu nggak bisa dijadiin end goal sebenarnya.
Jadi going back sebenarnya kayak kalian bertiga jadi bisa dilihat dari Ika, Medi, sama Abi sendiri, you guys are doing your own thing gitu loh, dan itu juga to set your own goals. Going back to the first discussion kan, kayak women empowerment is about finding what's empowering for you. Jadi kalau misalkan kalian udah ketemu hal itu yang kalian pengen pursue, the acknowledgement, the inspiration will come later. That's just a side effect of being good at what you're doing kan ya. Jadi kayak ya untuk teman-teman di sini, don't do it for the fame, do it for yourself. Cari tahu apa yang kalian mau untuk diri kalian sendiri, dan itu mungkin with that goal in mind, kalian siapa tahu bisa di masa depan ya, in the future bisa jadi seperti Najwa Shihab, Susi Susanti, bisa jadi inspiration to a lot of people because of what you do, not because you're looking for acknowledgement. Thank you, Abi. Nah, sebenarnya ini, I know this topic, I've spoken a lot with Medi tentang topik ini. Hal yang gue pengen ngomongin adalah imposter syndrome. Jadi, kan tadi pas kita di panel pertama, kita udah ngomongin nih microaggression. Nah, yang gue pengen ngomongin di sini tuh imposter syndrome. Why? Because kalau kita ngomongin pemberdayaan wanita di Indonesia, it's very important to consider, culture kita tuh beda sama culture yang Western, dan majority religion di sini kan Islam. Jadi itu juga ada effect on the culture and the social norms di Indonesia. Nah, with all of that being said, because of the culture here, ada tren di mana kayak lebih banyak wanita menghadapi imposter syndrome. Untuk teman-teman di sini, imposter syndrome itu tuh when you feel self-doubt and personal incompetence, walaupun kamu ada kualifikasi, kamu ada education, kamu ada experience dan accomplishment, kamu masih ngerasa kayak, oh I'm not enough, oh kayaknya aku nggak incompetent enough, kayaknya aku nggak cukup gitu loh. That's imposter syndrome. As three well-accomplished women, have you ever faced imposter syndrome? And how did you overcome it? kita mulai. Mungkin we can start from Maddie.
Oops, okay. Yeah, and I think kayak dari imposter syndrome sendiri, kalau gue baca research-nya, it's a global thing ya. Kayak kalau more women kayak experience kayak imposter syndrome daripada men. Ya kalau ditanya misalnya pernah imposter syndrome atau enggak, ya jelas pernah gitu. Dan menurut gue justru ini the more interesting part about kayak challenges that you face as a woman kayak entering the workplace versus orang-orang yang jahat ke lo atau kayak rules yang jahat ke lo gitu. Ini kayak lebih, I think for me especially more close to home gitu. Karena gitu loh, sepede mereka kalau mereka lagi gitu aja sih kalau dari gue kayak mungkin kalau dari Ika atau Abi ada yang mau menambahkan atau mungkin menyanggah, silahkan.
Tapi Matt, menurut gue kayak lu udah point out banyak banget sih yang gue setuju banget gitu. Jadi ini menarik soalnya gue waktu nge-apply kerja di US itu gue nego gaji gue gitu. Gue mau nambah 10%. Ya mungkin bisa ya nggak sih, coba-coba berhadiah gitu. Ternyata dinaikin gitu. Terus 1 year after gue udah kerja di US company itu, bos gue nanya, kok lu berani sih nanya-nanya naikin gaji gitu? Terus dia bilang, selama gue hire orang semua tuh yang naikin gaji actually cuma yang nanya nego gaji cuma cowok, bukannya cewek juga nanya nego gaji. Terus gue kayak bilang, because I just Google gitu. First thing to do after you get a job, the first thing actually negotiating the pay gitu loh. Kayak ya udah, just menurut gue kayak ya Medi bilang tadi ya, mungkin ada cultural background, tapi then we can change it gitu. Dan gue sering banget juga ada imposter syndrome lah ya, kayak kalau orang-orang ngomongnya sekarang gitu. Tapi menurut gue ya lower my ego aja sih, kalau emang gue tuh banyak banget kekurangannya dan masih belum ngerti, dan it's actually the opportunity for me to grow gitu. Dan the other part mungkin kalau mau kayak misalnya tadi di grup cewek atau cowok gitu, dan gue sih emang nggak masalah sih dari dulu, emang because my background is electrical engineering, gue emang kebanyakan temennya mainnya cowok-cowok gitu kan, jadi gue nggak ada masalah tuh kayak uncomfortable being in the guys conversation atau guys zone gitu kan, yang sama semuanya cowok semua gitu. Tapi at that mungkin kalau di tempat yang gue nggak ngerti, I try to dengerin orang dulu, instead of trying to prove a point, but learn from others people's perspective gitu sih mungkin ya. Jadi lu ngomong bukan ya jadi prove your point gitu sih menurut gue ya, itu buat overcome my imposter syndrome gitu in the workplace.
Oke. Menurut aku sih I have to agree with Maddie juga untuk conversation. Sebenarnya gue juga sadar abis pulang kuliah gitu, I realize kayak ya kenapa kalau misalkan gue di family gathering ditanya cuman kayak baju, weight gain, pacar gitu kayak or like makeup or something gitu. I realize that a lot of women are conditioned dari dulu sebenarnya untuk mikirin lebih banyak ke appearance, lebih banyak kayak materi gitu, lebih banyak tentang how people perceive us gitu, how people perceive women as women. Jadi mungkin penting banget nih untuk teman-teman juga yang ngerasa kayak iya bener, kalian sendiri have the power untuk break the cycle. Jadi kalau kalian ngerasa kayak kenapa gue ngomongin hal-hal yang don't matter to me gitu, padahal kayak gue mau ngomongin tentang stock lah, lo pengen ngomongin tentang NFT lah, ya go for it, cari orang-orang yang lo bisa ajak ngobrol tentang itu. Kalau misalnya dari Abi gimana, Abi? Menurut lo gimana?
Ya, gue setuju yang tadi omongin semua. Jadi mungkin I'll take it from a different angle aja kali ya. Kalau misalnya ditanya pernah ngerasa imposter syndrome ya, nah. Terus waktu itu sebenarnya waktu gue biggest imposter syndrome yang gue rasain tuh pas book launch Lalita gitu. Soalnya the entire process I was winging it. Gue bener-bener kayak nggak ngerti apa-apa, and somehow I'm here gitu. Terus I'm just waiting for it to crash and burn aja gitu. I'm just waiting as it turns out kayak dan itu tuh imposter syndrome gede banget gitu. Itu pertama kali gue ngerasa. Tapi and then gue refleksi gitu. Dan gue refleksi dan gue mikir gini, kenapa tiap kali kita ngerasa misalnya inadequate atau kayak kurang kompeten melakukan sesuatu, itu kita nilai sebagai jelek. Yang gue pikir, mungkin kan gue sih kenal banget sama diri gue. Ya. Mungkin berapa persen dari imposter syndrome itu tuh sebenarnya akurat. It's an accurate introspection. Yang nggak akurat itu perception kita terhadap expert-expert yang ada di luar sana. Karena dulu gue mikir, wah orang yang misalnya, yang tokoh misalnya, itu tuh pasti udah yakin banget lah, udah expert in their field, mereka tidak punya imposter syndrome, they know what they're doing. Tapi ternyata mereka semua winging it juga gitu. Ternyata people at the top, they don't know what they're doing juga a lot of the time. Nah, jadinya untuk fix the imposter syndrome bukannya bilang, gue kok enggak, semua orang nggak, nobody knows what they're doing. This is how it feels to do something. This is how it feels to be good at something gitu. Kita kalau ngelakuin sesuatu tanpa rasa ragu, itu psikopat sih sebenarnya gitu kan. Jadinya sebenarnya tuh nggak salah ya. Jadi yang salah bukan yang penilaian ke diri, justru menurut gue kadang kita akurat nilai diri. Yang nggak akurat itu nilai mereka lu anggap hebat gitu. Terus yang kedua, gue baru tahu jujur perempuan lebih banyak ngerasa imposter syndrome. Gue nggak tahu itu karena lebih banyak perempuan yang ngaku atau enggak. Cuman menurut gue sih feeling incompetent atau don't know what you're doing is universal cewek cowok. Tapi yang menurut gue mungkin cowok banyak yang nggak ngerasa atau nggak ngaku ngerasa imposter syndrome. They don't have the luxury to feel imposter syndrome. The society expect them to excel in career. Lu bayangin cowok kalau kayak, aduh saya ngerasa kurang kompeten nih, takut nego gaji apa segala, habis sama society mereka. Kalau misalnya cewek kan bisa dibilang kayak yang tadi kita bilang kan, career is not for you, it's fine. Untuk cowok memang boleh bilang gitu. They don't have the luxury gitu. Jadi kadang confidence mereka juga ke-push sama society, sama quote and quote maybe yang kalian bilang the patriarchy yang selalu nge-disadvantage cewek gitu. Kalian nggak lihat sebenarnya dalam narasi ini ada juga yang disadvantage cowok dan bahkan itu meng-advantage kita. Bahkan kayak kita punya the luxury to feel imposter syndrome, itu privilege ternyata gitu. Itu yang ngerasain. Jadi maybe itu aja sih.
Tapi kalau dari Abi sendiri, because you've spoken to so many women kan ya, pastinya mereka di journey-nya banyak banget tuh up and down. Kalau misalkan yang aku lihat sometimes dari acara-acara vampire, sometimes imposter syndrome sedikit pun changes females actions gitu ya, yang kayak tadinya cewek sama cowok yang education-nya sama dan skill set-nya sama, kalau cewek ngelihat job description yang challenging akan nggak apply, tapi kalau cewek yang ngelihat akan apply. Kan itu salah satu versi itu imposter syndrome yang kayak malah they don't get the job because of their self-doubt. Kalau misalkan that happens to some of the women here, kayak boleh nggak kasih some advice atau mungkin kayak arahan gitu, how do they focus on their career and how do they have more confidence in the skills that they have gitu.
Jadi how to overcome that ya. Okay. I think first, I need to say nggak ada satu jawaban yang bisa apply ke semua orang. Even di peserta yang di sini aja, itu tuh nggak bisa apalagi for all women gitu. Jadi yang penting itu bukannya what is the answer, tapi kalian harus tahu tools-tools yang kalian bisa acquire, di mana kalian bisa cari jawaban itu sendiri. Pertama, cari jawaban apa? Akar dari kenapa ngerasa nggak confident. Itu pasti alasan untuk setiap perempuan itu beda-beda. Kalau misalnya aku, yang tadi aku bilang, alasannya karena aku salah nilai expert-expert di luar. Aku kira semua orang tahu what they're doing. Jadi gue ngerasa ada doubt dikit, gue nggak pantas nih. Gitu. Tapi mungkin ada yang kayak Maddie bilang, karena dari kecil di condition sama situasi keluarganya. Ada yang mungkin karena ada trauma, pernah dikata-katain gitu. Nah itu kan beda-beda, aku nggak bisa kasih jawaban gitu. Nah, kalian harus punya tools, good self-introspection untuk cari dulu nih, akarnya kenapa nggak confident, kok gue ngerasa gini. Nah, waktu udah ketemu akarnya, kalian harus bisa juga cari jawaban, metode paling efektif untuk saya untuk bisa overcome akar ini nih apa? Karena itu untuk setiap orang pun beda-beda. Misalnya kalau untuk aku salah nilai orang, itu udah ketahuan tuh akarnya. Nah, jadinya remedinya apa? Gue ketemuin sebanyak-banyaknya profesional, gue interview, ya itu jadi sebenarnya Lalita gitu kan. Itu bener-bener ngobatin misconception gue terhadap dunia profesional. Gue ketemu banyak banget profesional yang gak tahu mereka pun masih bingung gitu, dan itu gue kayak oke, ternyata everyone feel that way. Terus gue juga ngelihat banyak orang, oh ya banyak yang masih ragu tapi mereka berani nyoba loh. Gue kayaknya lebih prepare nih dari ini orang, tapi kok gue nggak berani nyoba gitu. Jadi kayak itu ngebantu untuk gue. Tapi I know itu doesn't work for everyone. So kalian harus bisa punya tools untuk bisa cari jawaban-jawaban itu sendiri, karena nggak ada jawaban yang bisa dipukul rata. Tapi formulanya dua itu, cari akarnya, cari metode yang efektif untuk kalian untuk bisa ngatasin akar ini.
Oke. Jadi cari akarnya, cari solusi, take out the root problem, then maybe you find out sebenarnya why. Kayak karena kadang-kadang kalau kalian ngerasa imposter syndrome, it's not necessarily true kayak kalau kalian itu nggak cukup gitu. Padahal sebenarnya siapa tahu emang kalian skillnya sebenarnya cukup gitu. Kalau dari Ika sama Medi ada tambahan nggak untuk imposter syndrome nih?
Enggak sih dari gue.
Nggak ada, oke.
Okay. Sip, thank you. You second that. Kalau gitu sebenarnya let's move on to Q&A session dari audience. Teman-teman, jangan lupa kita ada waktu untuk beberapa pertanyaan nih. So make sure right now go to the chat box, tanya pertanyaan kalian yang kalian pengen tanyain Ika, Medi, sama Abi. Pertanyaan pertama ini agak berat nih. Ini dari Wiwi. Jadi Wiwi nanya, dia ada concern about jam kerja laki-laki dan perempuan yang sama in company atau workplace. Wanita menjadi ibu rumah tangga memiliki peran double. Harus ngerjain kerjaan rumah dan kerjaan kantor yang overload. Menurutku tidak ada keringanan dalam jam operasional pekerjaan pada perempuan. Begitu juga dengan perempuan yang belum married, tidak adanya free day when women getting their periods. What do you think about that, girls? It's a heavy question. Jadi sebenarnya Wiwi tuh nanya kayak sebenarnya there is a lot of issues sih di workplace untuk women in Indonesia. Yang pertama itu jam kerja, nggak ada keringanan untuk working mothers, nggak ada keringanan untuk ibu rumah tangga yang juga punya karir. Yang kedua itu adalah juga treatment women yang not married, nggak ada keringanan when kayak nggak ada understanding of misalkan period atau other issues that we face. What do you think? Mungkin ini open to the floor, yang mau jawab duluan.
Mungkin gue kali ya.
Atau Ika, boleh Ika.
Kalau gue mungkin dari sisi perspektif, misalnya gue a business owner gitu kan. Kalau misalnya mungkin dikasih lebih ke ringanan buat perempuan, gue sendiri juga lebih hire cowok dong. Mungkin in terms perspective of business ya, gue hire cowok dong gitu. Dan itu malah discriminate perempuan gak sih menurut gue ya. Nanti malah create another problems gitu. Karena ya dari business owner gue kan mau untung sebanyak-banyaknya orang yang kayak bisa cuan sebanyak-banyaknya juga gitu kan. Jadi menurut gue sih kalau soal keringanan itu kayaknya kita yang we probably need to make sure that we as a woman juga bisa compete with the man gitu. Menurut gue ya. Jadi nggak, menurut gue kalau keringanan itu nggak perlu sih menurut gue.
Kalau misalkan Abi sama Medi ada opini lain nggak?
Setuju. I think ini kan pertanyaannya ibu rumah tangga ya. Peran double itu ibu rumah tangga artinya waktu udah nikah. Nah, I think
gue belum nikah nih, Bi. Mungkin.
Ya, gue udah nikah.
Abi di sini ya.
Oke, bentar. Sebelum yang itu, kalau yang tentang period sebenarnya kalau misalnya period itu kan masuk ke policy ya ranahnya ya. Sebenarnya di Indonesia tuh udah ada loh aturannya. kalian boleh take the day off kalau misalnya period. Itu coba dicek aja ke company-nya, dan coba dicek aja sama, itu kan perda ya, kok nggak saja peraturan daerah. Jadi di daerah kalian gimana tuh peraturan, itu bisa dicek sebenarnya. Nah, kalau misalnya yang peran double antara ibu rumah tangga sama wanita karir, itu menurut aku benar banget katanya kayak Mustika tadi, negosiasinya nggak bisa di company, karena company mau segenerous apapun tujuan utamanya bikin duit. Kalau bukan bikin duit itu bukan company, itu yayasan gitu kan. Nah jadi nggak bisa negosiasinya di situ, negosiasinya di rumah. Artinya harus ketemu partner yang mau diajak kerjasama. Jadi gini, the way I see it nih ya, pekerjaan rumah itu kan kita kan bangun kehidupan tuh kayak working together gitu. Kalau misalnya beban nyari duit semua dibebanin ke suami, sangat-sangat fair kalau beban rumah tangga semua dibebanin ke istri. Tapi kalau istrinya ikut kontribusi dalam mencari uang untuk keluarga, artinya sangat fair dan bisa dinegosiasikan kalau cowoknya juga bisa bantu gitu. Nah, tapi itu kan negosiasinya gimana, takerannya gimana, senyamannya kayak gimana, itu balik lagi ke individu. Jadi menurut aku ini pertanyaannya bukannya company-nya bad, tapi lebih ke kita harus bisa manage supaya kita bisa compete. Bener banget itu.
Kalau Medi gimana,
Compete bukan di, menurut gue juga compete bukan di cewek doang ya, mungkin kayak compete ke cowok doang, tapi compete with everyone, literally kayak everyone yang have like, you know, maybe better advantage with you kan. Kadang-kadang mungkin ada orang yang even kayak rumahnya tinggalnya lebih dekat, berarti dia kan ke kantornya lebih cepat gitu kan. It's actually an advantage ya. Kita nggak bisa bilang dong kayak oh dia rumahnya lebih dekat jadinya kerjanya lebih bagus gitu sih menurut aku ya.
Ya, kayak kalau gue juga sama. Ya, gue setuju. Kayak kalau yang masalah period itu udah ranah hukum ya, ranah policy, labor law, DLL, harusnya udah ada yang ngatur. Terus kayak kalau urusan yang kayak menjadi ibu rumah tangga, itu kan udah personal choice ya urusannya, bukan urusannya company ataupun negara, kecuali when you're talking about jatah maternity leave misalnya. Kalau itu kan juga udah ada aturannya. Kalau masalah membagi responsibility, benar kata Abi, gue setuju banget. Pertanyaannya yang diubah, bukan kayak kan gue ibu rumah tangga, lo harus kasih gue keringanan. Oh nggak gitu. Ya pertanyaannya adalah apakah lo bisa membangun keluarga di mana ada equal division of kayak tasks gitu. Kalau misalnya gue kerja, ya it means pasangan laki-laki gue juga harus sedikit membantu dalam ngurus anak gitu. Karena anggapannya menjadi ibu rumah tangga atau menjadi pengurus rumah tangga itu also a job in itself kan. Jadi kayak biar nggak double job ya harus kayak setengah-setengah dua-duanya gitu sih. Iya.
Oke. Mungkin ini to wrap it all up ya. Kita ada satu last question dari Bella. The three of you have such different backgrounds, tapi you're all accomplished, well-respected in your own fields. How have you built the confidence and resilience over the course of your career? Ini juga pertanyaan mungkin untuk kayak gimana kayak wanita-wanita lain, kita juga bisa cari the confidence. Looking up to all of you right now with all of your accomplishments. How did you get there and how did you build your confidence? Mungkin Ika mau mulai?
Gue ya, jujur gue tuh kadang bingung ya if I'm confident or no gitu loh, because gue tuh kayak ngerasa masih misalnya soal chapter awalnya kan, ini gue bisa ngomong dari sisi gue aja ya, kayak it's not probably applicable for everyone. For example, soal chapter awalnya gila technicalnya gimana ya, cari desa gimana ya, I'm not confident, right? And then after this, kayak right now gue nggak confident in leading the team of 100 people gitu. Gila, how can I improve my public speaking in order to, create a better team and communication? So I guess confident itu dibuild dari that I put work on the specific thing that I want to improve gitu. Menurut aku sih itu ya, misalnya dulu technical, berarti ya gue mesti belajar apa nih supaya supaya increase my confidence in that field gitu, in that problem. Mungkin itu satu. Dan kalau tanya gue udah confident sebelum, in general ya masih banyak yang belum gitu kan. Ini itu. Terus kalau kedua resilience ya. Kalau personally for me, luckily gue find purpose aja to wake up every day, buat bangun, kalau gue nggak bangun nih orang mungkin nggak dapat air gitu kan. Atau mungkin di desa ini dia nggak ada WC gitu. Jadi itu sih yang bikin gue resilience ya. Kalau misalnya pengen kayak tiba-tiba down atau mungkin kayak gila gue nggak tahu nih besok mau ngapain lagi nih gitu. Itu tuh sering banget gitu. Tapi in the end gue realize menurutku gue beruntung lah bisa dapat a purpose every day and then resilience to go through all the problems. Itu sih menurut gue.
Kalau dari
mungkin dari Abby dan Medi.
Oke. Confidence and resilience ya. Kalau confidence sebenarnya itu related ke yang tentang yang tadi aku ngomong tentang imposter syndrome. Jadi sekarang sih kalau tiap kali yang aku realize juga ini sih sebenarnya. Jadi aku tuh orangnya perfectionist. Dan itu it took me 25 years to realize. Selama ini gue kira diri gue kurang perfectionist. Nah itu that's the first sign that you are a perfectionist when you think lu kurang perfectionist gitu kan. Itu, nah yang gue sadar semakin orang perfectionist semakin dia sering insecure gitu. Karena di otak dia harus perfect dulu baru dia have the confidence gitu. Dan no, lu nggak akan bisa perfect gitu. Jadi lu akan selamanya insecure.
Gue dong barusan tadi ngomong.
Iya.
Jangan gue perfectionist juga lagi.
Nah, jangan-jangan ya. Nah, terus jadinya yang pertama untuk gue gain confidence, gue turunin perfectionism gue. Gue turunin ego gue gitu. Yang tadinya gue pikir kayak gue harus yang jadi terpinter, tersukses, gak boleh gagal, harus jadi kayak leader yang gak ada cacatnya lah, apa segala itu. Gue kayak, udahlah gue nggak bisa kok kayak gitu, gue udah nyerah aja lah kalau jadi perfect. Jadi kalau gue gagal, gue ada kesandung atau gue ada kayak salah-salah ngomong, gue ketawain aja, gue kayak ya emang itu gue nggak bisa perfect gitu, ya mau gimana gitu kan. Jadi perfectionism-nya diturunin, otomatis confidence-nya naik gitu. Soalnya kan lu udah nggak put standarnya perfect gitu. Itu yang pertama. Terus yang kedua, yang tadi gue bilang gitu, gue selalu ngingetin, tadi misalnya nih, ini contoh paling bagus dah. Gue tuh setiap kali Yorin tadi bilang, oh look at Abigail accomplish gitu tuh, di dalam hati tuh kayak gila ini accomplish apa gitu kan. Dan mungkin kayak Maddie and Ika juga ngerasa gitu. Gue bener-bener ngerasa belum accomplish sama sekali. Tapi kalau diri gue yang 5 tahun yang lalu mungkin ngelihat gue mungkin akan bilang yang sama gitu, udah accomplish. Nah artinya apa ya? Nobody knows what they're doing. Mau sampai seatas Ibu Sri Mulyani pun tuh dia pasti masih ada insecure-nya, masih banyak yang dia nggak tahu apa segala gitu. Jadi setiap kali gue ada ngerasa insecure atau apa, gue bilang ya nggak apa-apa, itu normal, emang gue masih banyak yang harus belajar. It's the humility aja gitu, nggak apa-apa. Nah itu tuh sebenarnya secara nggak langsung ya confidence-nya juga ikut naik gitu. Terus kalau misalnya resilience, gue tuh selalu inget banget, ini sebenarnya yang kasih tahu ini my husband si Jeff. Jadi gue tuh mungkin kalau kesini kelihatan confident, tapi gue kalau yang sama orang-orang dekat sering lah tahu lah gitu kan, kayak ngomong lah insecure lah apa segala ada. Dia bilang gini, ini struck ke gue banget gitu. Dia bilang gini ya Bi, kayak kalau misalnya kompetensi apa segala, wah dunia ini di atas langit selalu ada langit lagi gitu. Tapi kebanyakan orang tuh males, dia bilang. Mau pakai kedok self love lah, mau pakai kedok saya mau self healing dulu, tapi dia bilang kebanyakan orang malas, itu malas doang. Jadi kalau lu rajin, lu udah 80% ahead of the game. Lu rajin aja, because most people don't have that. Dan itu tuh yang gue pegang banget, makanya gue mikir kayak ya udah nggak apa-apa, gue nggak yang terpinter, terkompeten, yang terhebat apa segala, tapi gue harus rajin gitu. Karena most people don't have that. Mereka pengennya leha-leha santai-santai, self-rewarding apa aja gitu. Jadi itu sih mungkin.
Oke. Jadi kayak untuk teman-teman di sini recap to be confident and resilient you have to put in the hard work. Dan in terms of confidence jangan terlalu perfeksionis karena lo mau seperfect apa pasti selalu ada insecure-nya, pasti selalu ada yang better gitu. Jadi kayak yang penting lo tetap jalan, yang penting lo tetap kerja keras. Wow. Kalau dari Medi gimana, Matt? How do you stay confident? How did you build your confidence and how did you stay resilient throughout your career?
Fake it till you make it sih, kayak ya udah gitu. Ya kan awalnya imposter syndrome, terus kayak stres gila. Terus kayak ya udah gitu kan, kayak makanya gue bilang ya udah dipaksa belajar, kayak salah dikit ya udah, yang penting gue coba ngomong, coba kayak ngerti orang lain ngomong apa, siapa tahu gue jadi makin pintar gitu kan. Ya udah lama-lama kan beneran ngerti gitu setelah beberapa bulan gitu kan, setelah setahun. Yang tadinya mungkin yang kayak kerasa juga dulu kan, misalnya gue mau masuk consulting tapi gue tuh rada telat karena dulu gue main-main doang gitu kan, jadi kayak gue telat di saat orang lain tuh udah ambis dan kayak consulting gitu, gue tuh yang baru kayak mau gitu. Sih udah awal gue masih halu, masih kayak aduh kayak kelihatan banget lah kayak bodoh gitu loh, maksudnya kayak orang-orang tuh udah experience banget mau masuk ke industri ini, minimal gue enggak. Ya udah awal-awal mau bodoh-bodoh gitu, ya udah dengerin aja. Gue aja masih waktu itu nggak tahu kayak BCG sama Bain tuh bedanya apa gitu, gue juga nggak tahu, tapi ya udah ya ngomong aja gitu, kayak ya udah dengerin aja gitu. Tapi ya ya itu dia, makanya fake it till you make it, terus kayak lebih bodoh amat gitu loh, kalau lo salah ya udah nggak apa-apa gitu, gak ada yang tahu gitu, nggak apa-apa. Kayak gitu aja deh kalau gue. Saya kalau terlalu dipikirin stres sih guys, karena kayak awalnya gue juga stres, gue pikir everyone knows that I'm dumb gitu kan. Karena sih no one cares guys, mereka mungkin juga lagi berusaha nutupin kebodohan sendiri. Jadi kayak
bener-bener no one cares actually.
No one cares. Asal kita jangan nyebelin terus kayak ngesok tapi salah gitu, tuh juga ekstrim, di other extreme lah, kayak gitu aja sih.
Ya, life motto lah ya. Mungkin juga bisa dicampur tadi dari takeaway sesi pertama. Yang penting lo confident, yang penting lo jalan terus yang penting lo nggak harm anyone along the way, ya lo bakal benefit yourself, you will grow. Okay, then thank you so much Ika, thank you so much Abi, thank you so much Maddie for this session. Keren banget deh bisa dengar dari kalian. Mungkin aku kalau mau recap sedikit untuk teman-teman. Jadi in the second session today kita udah ngomongin women empowerment is all about you, yourself. Kayak kamu cari tahu goal kamu apa, kamu cari tahu kamu empowered gimana, kamu cari tahu kamu mau ngapain gitu. After you do that, you just work for it, you work hard, and you focus on it for the value of the work. Jangan fokus on kerjaan untuk recognition, untuk fame ya. Dan tentang imposter syndrome, always pasti semua orang ada insecurities. Apalagi sebagai wanita, kalau misalkan kayak kalian merasa lebih insecure, kalian merasa lebih kayak skill kalian nggak mencukupi, yang penting kalian kerja keras, try the best you can, and slowly build your confidence. I think I wanna personally thank you dari Vampire udah hari ini udah sempat ngobrol sama Ika, Abi sama Medi. Thank you so much for taking time on Sunday to talk to us, to all the Vampresses di sini. Mungkin sebelum kita bubar, aku mau ajak foto dulu. I'm gonna count to 3. Mungkin Vampire admin udah siap ya? Oke, siap. Alright. I'll count down to 3 and then somebody will take a screenshot. Alright, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much semua panelists di sini. I hope to talk to you soon. Semoga kita bisa hang out kan, ini COVID udah turun ya. Sampai ketemu. Thank you Maddie, thank you Abi, thank you Ika.
Thank you everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you semuanya. Bye bye.
Bye bye.